Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and Tim would be sharing the homeschooling parent I wish I was, the homeschooling I wish I was. And this is because I think it's very easy to compare ourselves, especially with social media. I think it's very easy to watch my channel and think, wow, she's got it together, she's organized, she's doing all this. And I do put a lot of time and effort and energy into my homeschooling. I do want to share that because I think it's a big aspect of homeschooling. But I think it's easy to think, oh, she's got it together, I don't, I'm not doing as much. And I think that's pretty over across the board with social media. That's easy to compare yourself to others. And even though, I seem like I have it all together, doesn't mean I know everything I'm doing the best I can, and I share my journey with you. But there are times where I wish I could be like that homeschooler. And I've gotten definitely better over the years. I think our first year of homeschooling was our biggest, identity crisis of trying to figure out what type of homeschooler I was and fitting the needs of my kids. And I felt like I spent so much time trying to emulate what I was seeing, or that looks really interesting, I want to incorporate that, but forgetting that can I really fit that in? Can I really implement that the way that would need to be done for my kids? So I've definitely come across that journey where I'm really comfortable with who I am as a homeschooler. But that doesn't mean I can't grow and I can't be inspired by other homeschoolers. And I think that's the point. I think we should be getting inspiration from these, social media accounts, not necessarily trying to be exactly like that person or trying to implement the exact same thing they do in their homeschool. Because again, everybody's going to have different situations, different kids. It's not going to work across the board for everybody. So I definitely do think you can get inspiration from other channels and social media, but I think it's also easy to be hard on yourself that you're not doing those things. So I want to be honest that sometimes I definitely have those moments too, and I kind of try to frame it in the way that, okay, this is the homeschool I am, and that's okay. That doesn't mean I can't aspire to more or be inspired by more. So I want to share 5 things that's the homeschooler I wish I was. So the first one is, I wish I was a naturally more creative homeschooler. So again, my strengths are structure, routine, consistency, which are all wonderful things to have in your homeschooling. And I talk a lot on my channel about those things and how it makes my homeschooling run so much smoother, and my kids do really well with, routines and all that. So it fits me and it fits my kids really well. But there are times I wish I could have a more natural, creative side. That, mine is always more logical, list-oriented type thing, but there are times when I watch other channels where I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that. And one of my favorite channels to watch is the Mama Librarian. You can tell I talk about her channel a lot if I reference other channels, but I love how creative she is. I love that she puts these unit studies together for her kids, that they're interested in, and she layers the learning. She takes multiple sources and hands-on things. She's really, really good at that, and I think it's one of her gifted areas. I wish I could more naturally be able to pull unit studies together. I've never really been a big fan of creating unit studies because it's very time-consuming. I have so many, responsibilities I have that by the end of the homeschool day, I don't want to do more homeschooling than I already have done. So I really do admire those creative homeschoolers that can pull multiple reputable resources and create this really awesome unit studies for their kids that they're either interested in or want to learn more about. I think that's really cool. And it's something that, I strive to do, but again, it's not my natural background. Does that mean I can't do it? No, it just means I have to make more of an effort to do those types of things. So I do try to keep that in mind when I'm doing things with my kids, that, how can I make this a little bit more creative for them or meet their needs in a different creative way. So the next one is, I wish I was a more natural game schooler. Now, I don't think your entire education should be game schooling. I don't think that's going to work well. But again, I am not naturally a person that enjoys games, board games, any of that. I don't like to sit down and do that type of stuff. My husband luckily does, and he plays the games with the kids and does all that. But there are times, especially since my 7-year-old is doing multiplication tables, right now. There are so many different games and things like that, and we do have some from previous years. It's just never my inkling to like pull them off the shelf and do it because it's not something I enjoy. Now, just because you don't enjoy it as a homeschool doesn't mean you can't do it. If especially my 7-year-old who does really well with games, enjoys them, this is something that would aid her. So, for me to get it done, I gotta write it down and make sure it's part of the plan, or it will be, I'll completely forget about it. Because again, my natural instinct isn't to play the games, but to, get our work done that's already pre-planned. So bringing in more of that game aspect, and I've tried to do that, in history. We brought in a game this past year when we were doing the United States geography last year. We brought in a game for that. So I am slowly trying to, naturally bring those elements, but I have to make an intentional effort to do it, or I never will. Next one is, I wish I was a homeschooler that had more opportunity in my area. I'm starting to think that this is kind of unique, that a lot of homeschoolers tend to have a larger community or options, whether that be, enrichment schools, classes, co-ops, those types of things. There's not a lot out by me, and especially in the town I live in, the nearest co-op, besides the one that I help run, is like an hour away, which, again, is doable, but that's like taking a good chunk of half of my day if that's something I commit to. But I just wish I was a homeschooler that had more opportunities that weren't, an hour plus away. I wish I had access to charter school funds or anything like that. Now, I live in a state that has absolutely no homeschooling laws, which I think a lot of people would like, but I disagree. I do think there should be some regulation with that, and I've talked about that in my channel. But also, if I had access to funds that would help educate my kids, or resources I could buy, or classes they could take, I would absolutely jump through those hoops. Whatever you need, portfolios, assessments, absolutely, because homeschooling can get expensive. I have 3 kids, and I average, I think, around $1,200 a year at this point, and I have a 6th grader, a 2nd grader, and a pre-Ker. And I have a feeling when my oldest, as she continues to get older and go into the older grades, it's just going to get more expensive. And having access to those funds would be nice, because we are a single income family. Now, that is by choice. And of course, you can see our budget videos. I do make homeschooling budget videos because I do think it's an important conversation to be having, that homeschooling does cost money, even when you use, high quality resources that are free, like Core Knowledge that I use. You still got to bring a bunch of different resources in, and you need more than a library card, despite what anybody says. So I wish I just had more opportunity to that, or even, enrichment classes or co-ops, areas that my oldest, especially being 11, would have more opportunity to have peer-on-peer discussion in situations, because the co-op I help run, it's all aimed at younger kids, and that's not on purpose. I really wanted this to be fulfilling an area for my oldest especially, but there's just no kids in my area in middle school that are really homeschooling. A lot of them go to the private or public school, starting in 6th grade, because the workload, the dynamics do change from elementary to middle school to high school. So I kind of understand that, but I just wish there were more options. And it's not my lack of effort, it's a lack of opportunity. I literally tried to create a co-op to help aid this, and it still didn't hit the areas that were needed for my oldest. So I wish there was more opportunity in my area. I wish I lived in, a larger area, or an area where homeschooling was more popular. Next is, I wish I was a homeschooler that was more technology friendly. So I've always purposely kind of shied away from using a lot of technology with school, just because I think it's overused, and I wanted especially my oldest, to learn a lot of stuff, not associated with the computer necessarily. But that doesn't mean I can't make an effort to change that. So one of the things that she'll be doing this summer, hopefully, is she'll be doing a Microsoft Office, kind of an introduction to using that. This past year, we introduced the Core Knowledge computer units, and they've done Lego coding in the class, which involves a computer as well. She really enjoys typing her papers, my oldest now. So I've definitely started to incorporate it more, but I'm just not a naturally techie person. So, I'm more of a pen and paper type person, but I'm also realistic that if she decides to go to school, high school, or, the plan is she wants to go to college, she needs to have a good background, not just how to use computers, but how to use different platforms, how to, everything's Google Classroom. A lot of assignments and even textbooks now are online. She needs to know how to navigate that before she enters a more formal school setting, whether that be in high school or college. So I, again, inspired that I need to address this issue. I need to work on it. And that's something we're going to be doing. Like I said, we started the computer units. Next year, she will be doing some classes that have more of an online platform that she'll have to, log in and out and find her assignments type thing. And that's just preparing her for the future, which is important. But I would say I'm definitely not technology-minded person. Luckily, my husband is, so he can help with that. And the last one is, I wish I was a homeschooler that could have all my kids work in the same area. I don't know what it is about my kids, but something about them all being in the same spot, they cannot do anything. So they all have separate areas that they work in for homeschooling. And I do have a homeschool spaces video you can check out if you want to see the specific areas. But my oldest, she usually works in our living room, on a table, and that's always where she's worked. My youngest works in our family room, which again, different room, and then my 7-year-old works at the dining room table. And we do come together for group subjects like history and science and philosophy, but that's it. And even those times, history and science, it's really hard to get them to be like, okay, guys, we need to focus and do our experiment, not, throw things at each other. So it is difficult to get them to work, and especially my 7-year-old who has ADHD struggles with distraction. So having, her brother running around the room with his sword and playing is a huge distraction for her. And even my 4-year-old who works in his own, works in the family room, he needs his own area too, or he gets easily distracted, or he wants to have his school time with mom separately than his sisters. But it'd be nice if I wasn't, if you watch my day in the life, which I'll link up above for you, I go from room to room to room for like 2.5 hours straight. I don't feel like I get to sit a lot. I will sit next to them and do lessons, but it would be nice if they could sit, around the table or sit in the living room together without bugging each other so intensely that we couldn't get work done. So those are the homeschoolers I wish I was. That is the homeschooling I wish I had. And it's okay that I'm not those things. It's okay that I embrace what my strengths are, but that's not ignoring my weaker areas. Like I said, I'm trying to address the technology issue. I'm trying to be more creative. I'm trying to provide social opportunities for my oldest. So you can get inspiration, but not feel bad about yourself that, oh, I don't have this or I can't do this. You can make steps positive in that way too. If that's something you want to do, then try it. Try making steps towards it. And also realize that it could just not be you. You can totally appreciate a homeschooling style, homeschooling parent for what they do, but it not work for you. I wish that was a lesson I would have learned a lot earlier, that I think we start out, like I said, we start out doing a lot of things we see on social media because we're unsure of ourselves. But really, you gotta find your own path in homeschooling, and I think that's essential, that it's your path, and to be comfortable with the homeschooling you are and meeting your specific family needs and your kids' needs, and not let everybody else's opinions cloud that and try to be that homeschooler, because we are all our unique own homeschoolers. So I'd love to hear, what is the type of homeschooler you wish you were or you want to be? I think that would be really interesting to read in the comments below. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, thank you for watching.